What's up? I'm Luke, and I'm talking about tomato cages. Now, this is kind of a hard question because there's a lot of tomato cages out there, and it's hard to pick which one you want to use. So it's pretty easy to just go to the hardware store and say, give me one of these tomato cages. Most of the time, you're going to get the traditional tomato cage, which kind of looks like this, and it's tiny, and it doesn't do a whole lot for indeterminate tomatoes. And typically, when you go to the store and buy tomatoes, you're buying indeterminate tomatoes unless it states otherwise and you happen to know the determinate species that you're buying. But that's okay. So what can you do? There's a lot of different options. I'm going to run through some of them, and then this video is about what I do for my tomatoes, which I really like, and I think it's a great way to do it. It's cost effective and it works for the tomatoes. So the first one that's a pretty good method is obviously just the cage. Now you can make your own using fence, or you can buy it however you want, but you really don't want to just go get the small ones because that's not going to work. So getting a roll of fencing, and making multiple big cages, and you got to think about when you get in there and work with it, you don't want it to be tiny rolls of fencing. You want to have the big cattle rolls so you can get your whole hand in there and work on the tomato, and that's a good way to do it. Another way to do it is to string up your tomatoes. So you can just run some pillars and then put some wood up top and then connect strings to it. And as the tomatoes grow, you run a circle around the tomatoes all the way up to the top, and they follow that string, which actually is a good way to do it because it allows the tomatoes to move in and out. And it doesn't look that bad. It looks a little kind of weird, but it still works. So a lot of nurseries do this, and a lot of greenhouses do this to grow their peppers and their tomatoes year-round, and it works. Another way to do it is just post and fencing. So you put some post in, like in a row, and you just take fencing and stretch it all the way down there, and then as your tomato grows, you tie it up to the fencing, and it can grow out, which is a good way to do it. The most cost-effective thing to do, and for long rows, is stakes, like 8-foot spans, maybe less depending on how many tomatoes you're planting, with 2 strings. And then those 2 strings will be the only thing that really hold up the tomato, but by the time they get bigger, they'll just weep over. And so it supports the tomato from breaking. And that's a good way to do it, but with me, I wanted to try to fit more tomatoes into my space, so I designed it a little bit differently. There's the teepee, which a lot of people have done, which is a very simple thing you can even do with sticks and tying them off to grow tomatoes. There's trellises, there's all that type of stuff, but those are the ones that I think are pretty cool. So basically this video is about showing you my style and what I do, and also real quick I'm going to add, I'm from the Midwest and climate zone 6 and an urban setting, and I grow in my front yard, which is, a lot of people would say, don't do that because it's your front yard. But for me, I don't have light anywhere else, and that's where the light is, so you got to go with the light when you're gardening, and I actually like it. So let's get into the video, and I'm going to show you how I do this. Like after you get the post in here, this is a 24 by 3 foot bed. I'm going to use it for tomatoes this year, but eventually I'm going to have these posts on all of my beds because it's a multi-purpose post. I'm going to run my style cage through here, which I like to call a spiderweb cage, and I'm going to show you how that works here in a minute with running the string through these. And that way every year I don't have to be moving tomato cages or anything, I just leave it here. Because these posts, I'm not going to do it in this video, I'm going to do it in the future. I'm going to put wood and PVC on the tops of this to kind of make a top box, and that way I can drape shade cloth over it or plastic, whichever one I prefer for the season. So if it's too hot in the summer, I can take and put a shade cloth over it. during the wintertime, I can turn this into a mini greenhouse. So I don't lose any money by buying these stakes. These are 6-foot stakes. I have 16 in this bed, roughly $3.70 a piece. So I spent $65 on stakes for this bed. So it'd be a little bit of money to do all of them, but they need it. During the wintertime, I'll use it as a mini greenhouse. I can grow kales and lettuces and radishes and all kinds of other stuff inside these beds. But for now, I'm going to make my spider web cage for my tomatoes. I did this last year and it was very effective. It worked. It allows the tomatoes to move in the wind without damaging the plant, and it allows you to maximize your space. So in this, I'm also going to have to take care of them. I can't just let them go wild. I'm going to have to trim them, prune them, and guide them through this spider web. I'm also going to companion plant with these tomatoes, so it won't be just tomatoes. It'll be herbs and onions and flowers and all kinds of other stuff in here with my tomatoes, trying to protect them from pests and draw in good pests and keep the bad pests out, which is part of organic gardening. But I'm gonna get back to weaving the web now, which is pretty fun. The first step of the spider weave, you can see it goes from this post over to that post, back over to that other post over there, and you do that in and out, and then you come back with it, and so it kind of makes this diamond shaped pattern. And I'm going to do that all the way up to here, and then I'm going to run one around the outside of it too to hold it in. But I like to have it like this because it actually gives the string some rigidity and allows it to, you know, kind of bounce a little bit, but it also has strength to hold the tomato plant. The string that I'm using is jute. It's pretty durable, it biodegrades, and it's fairly cheap. Now, if you're going to do this as a permanent bed, you could use something else. You could use some nylon or, you know, stronger rope if you prefer, but I prefer jute because you get a lot of it for cheap. And I plan on rotating my crops, so I'm going to move this and take the string down, but I tie these knots so that I can get them off of here and reuse this jute. The first step of the weave is complete. All the way up to the top, got this diamond shape going all the way down it. Now what's going to happen is that you put more tension on this, it's going to loosen up these bottom lines a little bit. You can see there's some play in it. So what I'm going to go do is go down to the other end, tie onto it, and re-tension it, because the tension's now at the top. So here I go to do that. Another thing is, as this stuff kind of weathers, it's going to lose a little tension. So when you do tension the line like this, put a slip knot on it so that you can just pop it off and retension it if needed. Up the line, I'm going to go ahead and run the outside line that goes all the way around it on each section. So here we go. Alright, so when it's all said and done, this is what it looks like. It's on the outsides, it's up here, so it's basically like a big web. Now as the tomato plant grows up, I can tie it off to this string, I can put in extra supports, I can run, I have a whole lot of things that I can do with this string. to help the tomatoes grow up here. And another thing is, it looks a lot better than a big wire cage, because the further you get back, the less noticeable it is. I mean, you got the stakes and everything, but it's not like you got a bunch of metal cages in here. And once it's filled up with tomatoes, it's gonna look pretty darn good. And there'll be flowers and all kinds of other stuff growing out of it. But yeah, that is my tomato cage. So it works really well. Last part before it's finished, I forgot to add real quick here, is that there are these sections like this, and you've got your diamonds and your triangles, and the triangles are what we're going to plant in. But I'm also going to run a string from here to here to make it a square, and then it will be done. So thanks for watching.